Last week, I counted down my least favorite animated films of the year, and now it's time for me to name the animated features I greatly enjoyed, ranging from ones that were pretty good to the cream of the crop. This was an extraordinary year of animation, hence why I have 12 entries on this list. So let's get started then with The Secret Life of Pets. This is fairly par for the course for Illumination. Cuteness seems to rule the day in their productions, and this continues the tradition of this fairly young company. The film is at its most clever when detailing the pet's household activities while the owners are away, and the filmmakers had a lot of fun playing around with the various species of cats and dogs. This is also an example of an animated film where the all-star cast is actually well chosen, and not being picked for their name recognition, with Kevin Hart serving as the standout as Snowball the Rabbit. The humor is successful, opting more for cartoony tone, and that works fine for the film as a whole. The attempts at sentiment don't work quite as well and are sort of swept under the rug most of the time. However, The Secret Life of Pets works as a funny little picture and another solid entry in Illumination's catalog. Long Way North. People are frequently talking about Disney putting that twist on the princess protagonist, but they are not the only studio doing it, and it's not just something major Hollywood animation studios are doing. This French-Danish co-production uses a minimalist style to tell its story of a Russian royal who goes off to find her ancestors' lost ship. The brush-stroked animation is nicely realized, and the film does not shy away from the rough climate our lead character Sasha ends up going to. It practically turns into The Revenant in the second half, though maybe not quite as intense. It may seem a little slow in parts, and I imagine the original language track is stronger than the English dub I watched. However, there's still a lot to appreciate in this small little animated film that's worth seeking out. Storks. Neighbors director Nicholas Stoller and former Pixar animator Doug Sweetland put their skills together quite nicely in this wonderfully cartoony animated romp. Utilizing the skills of the Sony Imageworks animators and paying homage to the classic cartoons of Warner Brothers' past, Storks really was a delight, and one that flew surprisingly under the radar. Playing with the childhood idea of where babies come from, the filmmakers had a lot of fun expanding on the concept and applying it to modern sensibilities and the rise of online retailers. The chemistry between the orphan Tulip, voiced hilariously by Katie Crown, and the ambitious Junior was on point, and even the baby was used as more than just a plot device. The wolf pack they encounter and a certain red tie-wearing pigeon also provided plenty of laughs. However, the film also had heart and mixed that nicely with the comedic aspects. The film even managed to throw in a nice message about inclusiveness and how parents come in all types these days. I hope more people check out Storks now that it's on home video. Sing. Of Illumination's two productions this year, I think this is the superior film and might be my favorite of their films to date. Director Garth Jennings goes for the ensemble film route here, something not normally seen in animated features, and it pays off pretty well. Each character is given their moment to shine and develop with their own little storylines. There's a good-natured spirit to Sing I admire, and while they use many popular songs, they fit the characters rather than just put in because people will recognize them. The musical numbers definitely have an energetic vibe to them, and the longer ones do not outstay their welcome. Sing does not stray too far from the let's put on a show story template that has been used in musicals for decades, but that's okay. It wears its influences on its sleeve and provides an overall good time. April and the Extraordinary World. This French animated film is quite an imaginative one, with an alternate history that has been clearly thought out by the filmmakers, and the animation suits this vision really well. The stakes are frequently high, and April is a great lead, albeit one with flaws we continually root for. The action scenes are directed with a lot of energy, and the art directors deserve credit for how they bring this world to life. The internal logic of the story does make sense, even as it gets more loopy as the film goes on. The English dub is also one that works, never feeling like things have been lost in translation. The screenplay does start to feel a tad over-expositional and long-winded near the end, but eventually builds to an emotional conclusion. There's quite a lot to admire in April and the Extraordinary World and its steampunk vision. Kung Fu Panda 3. What might end up being the conclusion of the Kung Fu Panda franchise, this is yet another beautiful entry in the series and a worthy end. Po's journey from the first film to this one has been fully developed, and the world building of this animal-populated version of China has been clearly thought out. The colors in the sequel are even more magnificent than in the previous entries, with directors Jennifer Yu Nelson and Alessandro Coloni utilizing quite a few different animation and design choices here. Po reuniting with his father and his village is also very sweet and nicely portrayed, and the kung fu sequences continue the incredible respect the series has for the martial arts. The villain is also one whose backstory is well explored, and he does prove to be a genuine threat for the characters, especially helped by the great vocal performance from J.K. Simmons. While Kung Fu Panda 2 remains my favorite of the trilogy, the third chapter absolutely deserves to sit alongside the other two in this delightful DreamWorks saga. Sausage Party. This is an animated comedy that could have easily gone for easy crude jokes and sophomoric gags, and while it seems like that on the surface, Sausage Party manages to tackle larger themes and ideas in a humorous way. It also uses the animation medium to its advantage by parodying and using the Pixar story formula with food as the main characters. It actually manages to be rather even-handed in how it depicts the atheism versus religion debate, with the main character, Frank, continually making mistakes in trying to get his ideas across. Craig Kelman's designs clearly take a lot of influence from classic cartoons and add to the film's humor. Bookended with a rather dirty Alan Menken song and a sequence that is to be seen to be believed, one's enjoyment of Sausage Party certainly depends on how one feels about Seth Rogen's sense of humor. However, as something very different from the animated features we usually see on North American screens, it is certainly refreshing, although I do wish the animators had gotten far better treatment behind the scenes. The Little Prince. Tackling one of the most beloved children's books of all time, Mark Osborne had a tricky task ahead of him, especially when he decided to make the focus a little girl reading the story. Thankfully, he succeeded in crafting a sweet film about the importance of holding on to childhood and not growing up too quickly. The relationship between the girl and the old pilot is nicely portrayed, and the way the film segues into the Little Prince segments fits well with what the characters are going through. The stop motion in those portions is absolutely lovely, with a very paper-like feel, and perfectly capturing the original illustrations. Rather than making one wish the entire film is a straight stop-motion adaptation, these scenes complement the main storyline with the girl. As a fan of the book, I was not sure what to make of the ending at first, but the more I thought about it, the more I understood where Mark Osborne was going with it. This was a touching representation of this childhood classic, and certainly deserving of the Little Prince name. Moana. The latest from Ron Clements and John Musker certainly fits within the classic Disney format, but they nonetheless managed to create a beautiful story that nicely represents the South Pacific culture. The Disney artist always tweaking and playing around with the so-called Disney princess formula, and Moana continues that tradition by combining her love of sailing and going out into the ocean with a ticking clock of her island in danger. That ups the stake, and her pairing with the demigod Maui also succeeds. It's a friendship that mixes both comedy and drama in a way that's very much the Clements and Musker trademark. The songs by Lin-Manuel Miranda are wonderful additions to the Disney catalog, and yes, these are sure to be hummed for many years to come. Moana's anthem, How Far I'll Go, is the standout of the bunch, but Maui's delightful ode to himself, You're Welcome, and the introductory song, Where You Are also excellent tunes. The various dangers Moana and Maui come across definitely lend an episodic nature to the film's plotting, but they are also necessary elements for their character development. As you can see, it's not my favorite Disney animated film of the year, but it's still worthy of a spot high on this list. Kubo and the Two Strings. Laika has made a name for themselves with imaginative and impressively animated stop-motion works of art. Kubo continues that with the studio CEO and lead animator Travis Knight doing a marvelous job in his directorial debut. Using Japanese history for its setting, the film plays with the idea of memory, and that drives our hero in his journey, which takes on an almost Miyazaki-like appeal with the various animals he meets. The world building is tremendously handled, and the antagonists are genuine threats. The fight sequences are incredible, with the choreography having a lot of fluidity and weight, so when characters are hurt, it's felt. Dario Marinelli's music is one of my favorite scores of the year, and a major character piece thanks to the guitar Kubo carries on his journey. The emotion and unforgettable images of Kubo and the two strings definitely play a key role in the film's beauty, and this absolutely deserves to sit alongside Coraline and Paranorman on the shelf. Zootopia. What at first glance seemed like a story about a couple of animals in the big city ended up being a lot more topical. Its willingness to tackle themes of prejudice and discrimination added another depth to Zootopia and made the world even more alive. Judy Hopps is allowed to be a flawed character, even as she tries to break the glass ceiling, as she herself succumbs to the stereotyping she accuses others of. It's clear how much thought the film's directors, Byron Howard and Rich Moore, put into the structure of Zootopia and how the animals live their lives, as well as the role of predator and prey. We really get a sense of the history of the city and how things have built up to when the city was at its lowest. The animation team at Disney do a terrific job with both the production design and the characters. The little subtle movements made by the characters that tells us so much about them. The mystery itself is also an intriguing one, and it's fun revisiting Zootopia and seeing the little hints the filmmakers dropped. It's a credit to how cleverly written Zootopia is that even a Godfather parody manages to be both funny and develop the story. Much has been discussed about the social commentary in Zootopia, which certainly adds to its appeal, but there's a lot to admire in the film outside of that aspect. And my favorite animated film of 2016 is Finding Dory. This could have been a typical sequel revisiting events of the first film in a new light and giving more focus on a supporting character that they did not really need to. However, Andrew Stanton is not that kind of director, and instead uses this sequel to develop Dory in a major way, and also to explore the treatment of disabled and handicapped people in a way that's very respectful. The film tackles this subject properly, showing what they have to deal with and how they manage to overcome it. The way the film uses flashbacks is very clever, with Stanton finally utilizing the plot device he originally intended for Finding Nemo. Dory's mind calculating her every move and trying to figure out the solution is brilliantly written, and the addition of Hank the Octopus, voiced fantastically by Ed O'Neill, works even further, making Dory's journey a delight. Marlon also goes through his own personal journey with Nemo too, even as he becomes a supporting character here. The script Finding Dory is so clever, it even makes great use of a celebrity voicing themselves, something that usually ends up being annoying in animated films. And of course, there's that trademark Pixar heart that almost always leaves an emotional impact. I love Finding Nemo, so Finding Dory had a lot to live up to. Thankfully, it succeeded with flying colors, and this is not only my favorite animated film of the year, but one of my favorite films, animated or otherwise, of 2016. Now that I've done my list, let me know what your favorite animated film of the year was. It's definitely been a great year for animation, and I certainly look forward to seeing what 2017 brings, as it promises a pacifist bull, an underpants-wearing superhero, emojis, the nativity story, a guitar-playing hound, a young Mexican boy, a baby with plans for world domination, and the return of our favorite vehicles, Lego figures, Smurfs, squirrels, minions, and ponies too. See you next time.